Hi, good day to all of you because you are joining from different time zones. So I'm just going to say good day and thank you all for joining on a Saturday morning. I know some people it's too early, for some people it's too late, but you're taking time to join and we are honored and humbled by it. So before we let you hear from Monica, she has a lot of information, good information and nice visuals to share with you. We just want to tell you a little bit about Coco Town because there are a lot of times we have some people who are not our customers, so we just want to expose them to what Coco Town is. So I'm not going to bore you a lot, just a few minutes, please. And then Coco Town Yes, the parent company was started in 1992 as Inno Concepts. Just like the name suggests, it's innovative products. We didn't want to be just a trading company. Even though it's a trading company, we just didn't want to deal with the Me Too products. We always wanted to do something unique and innovative. And then we were primarily focusing on the machines for the South Indian market. But then it was going good. We had distributors all over USA to help the customers so they didn't have to ship it Atlanta for repairs. And then in 2007, 2008, we had a recession. So we had to change our focus. So we wanted to see where we can make a positive difference. And over the years, we always collected the information from our customers. When we don't recognize the name as a South Indian name, we call them and ask them, hey, why are you buying this machine? What are you using it for? So we found people were making it for masa, they were making it for nut butters, nut milks, hummus, tahini, lot of different things. And then a couple of people said chocolate, and then even there was one lady who was using it to make a sphagnum mask, using it from the park, Central Park in New York, and then she was making a facial mask, and her clients loved it. She said it was cheaper than importing from Europe, and it's a better quality. So we looked at all of those, and then the chocolate caught our attention. We thought because chocolate doesn't have any religious restrictions, or you can eat any day of the week, any time of the day, and any age. So, and we also did little more digging and then found out the existing chocolate machines were like $1 million of worth, and they had to have a huge facilities. So we said, okay, we will make something that anybody can make chocolate. So we were focusing on three different areas: environment, customers, business, and agriculture. We wanted to make sure, we also found out the farmers were not getting compensated enough for the cocoa beans. So the people, when they make the bean to bar or the craft chocolate or the fine chocolate, there are a lot of definitions right now. Fine Chocolate Industry Association is coming up with a glossary of the things that defines what each word means. So people who make this craft chocolate, they were paying more for the farmers so they can make the farming to the next generation can take over. And then we make the machines with stainless steel so it can stay for longer because we believe in reduce, reuse, recycle. So these machines, they don't have to end up in landfill. And then the customers business, we are always interested in making sure the customers grow their business too, then we can grow with them. So we came up with the 3-day intensive workshops. So people can come here and they stay here for 3 days and learn everything about making chocolate, from sorting the beans all the way to wrapping the bars and writing a business plan. But again, when the pandemic hit in 2020, we had to pivot again. So now we are focusing more on education. So we thought if people cannot travel to us, so let's connect them through Zoom. So we came up with the idea called Empowering Chocopreneurs webinar, and we are bringing all the industry experts, peers, and influencers to share their knowledge for the benefit of the community. And we are very fortunate, like people like Monica and everybody, they are willing to do this free of charge. So we can in turn give it free of charge for people who want to join. And these recordings also live on our cloud right now. So if you need to watch it after, we will, you can send us an email, we will send you the recording. So now, so um, we're looking forward to returning to the new normal, like meeting people in person. The first one is like Dallas Chocolate Festival coming in a couple of weeks. We will be there. So if you are visiting, please come and say hi to us. And then we always, want to end with Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. That means loosely that may all the beings everywhere in the world be happy and free, and may the thought and actions of my own life contribute in some way to those actions and to that freedom for everyone. Thank you. Now I will hand over the mic to Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Balu. So Mrs. Balu already mentioned that this event today is being recorded, and if you've registered and you're here, you'll be receiving a link to view the recording at a later date. And then if there are any other webinars that we've done, you'll find them on our website, and you can register to view past events. The other thing I'd like to mention is if you have a question, as the presentation is going on, you can go ahead and put your question in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer time with Monica. And so I think that's it on what I usually call housekeeping. So next thing I would like to do is just a quick conversation with Monica, just to get to know her a little bit before we move into the presentation. So Monica, what I would like to ask is, can you share a little bit about where your love of cocoa or your love of chocolate started? You know, a little bit about the spark that, you know, sort of ignited this chocolate journey for you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, both Teresa and Mrs. Balu, for having me here today. Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited to see you, to talk to you and share a little bit about the work that we make in Mexico City, in La Rifa Chocolateria, which is the project that I'm part of. And yeah, this has been a very, very interesting journey. The way I was involved with cacao and chocolate had a lot to do with passion and curiosity. A couple of years ago, like 10 years ago, if you ask, we started a small project. My partner and I started a small project, which was focused on transforming cacao into chocolate. And we decided we wanted to make all of this bonbons and truffles and just to live the life of chocolate makers. But interestingly enough, we live in a very, very particular country when it comes to cacao. We are from Mexico. And here in Mexico, we perceive cacao and chocolate from a very, very complex and intricate perspective. So for us who were trying to build this project based on these tiny pieces of chocolate candies, people weren't just having it, you know, like people were interested, but not as interested. So we decided to turn our heads a little bit and start thinking about the real Mexican chocolate and what people in our country consider chocolate. So we started making chocolate drinks on our small chocolate shop. It was in Coyoacán. So we started making drinks and kept doing the bonbons and the small chocolate pieces. But we happened to meet a couple of cacao farmers in this event that was happening in the city. And 10 years ago, the chocolate world and the chocolate industry wasn't what it's today. You know, I was just checking out the Cocoa Town like story, and yeah, the years have passed and a lot of things have changed. I remember when we were on the chocolate shop, we were just thinking about these machines, right? We were thinking about getting a machine that was going to help us to create chocolate from the bean to the bar. We were just buying like already made chocolate and just melting it and making our pieces with it. But when we met the cacao farmers and we went to the cacao plantations, to Tabasco, to Chiapas, it changed the whole paradigm for us, you know. It changed the whole thing that we wanted to be in. And it was a very, very recent project. So all of the mission and all of the identity of the project was still in development. But by knowing what the chocolate, the other side of the chocolate, the other world that us as citizens weren't seeing, it was super, super enlightening, because we wanted to start making our own chocolate. But at that time, getting machines and trying to start your own like chocolate atelier was practically impossible. The machines were, as Mrs. Balu was saying, super, super expensive, the machines, and like shipping them to Mexico, it was even harder. So I'm happy to see that time has passed and people have understand this idea of what chocolate is, not just in Mexico, but in other latitudes. And I think it's very, very interesting, this network that it's being created by webinars and different events, encounters like the Dallas Chocolate Fest and some of the events that are being made in Mexico, to gather people that are as interested as us in cacao, in chocolate. I think that's what enrich all this whole experience, you know.
Okay, well, with that, I'm very excited to turn the presentation over to you. You've kind of, I think, already got the ball rolling with what you're going to share with us today, and I look forward to it. See you on the other side.
See you. Okay. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, if that's okay. Okay. See. Ready. Okay, guys. So I'm going to say hi again to everyone. Thank you so much for being with me today, for being with Teresa, Mrs. Balu, and I this morning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the work that we do at La Rifa Chocolateria. I hope this session will be very, very interesting for you. And I will be grateful if you share any doubt or any question you have with me, okay? On this occasion, I will take the time to talk to you about some of the elements that we value at La Rifa Chocolateria when we are talking about making chocolate, whether it's a chocolate bar or a foamy chocolate drink, okay? But before we start, I would like to tell you a little bit about La Rifa. I already started telling you about my story, but I will tell you a bit of La Rifa and this project that I'm very, very proud of and I really, really love. So we are La Rifa Chocolateria, and we are, as I told you, a Mexican project that it's focused on the transformation of cacao into chocolate, right? So we work hand in hand with cacao producing families in the Mexican Southeast. For almost 10 years, we have been transforming cacao into chocolate on our chocolate workshop, chocolate atelier in Mexico City. At La Rifa, we're looking to bring real chocolate to the people who visit us, normal, regular people, just the general audience. Mexican chocolate has a great variety and richness in drinks, traditions, and culture. And it makes Mexican cacao seeds of great importance to us, to all of us, not just the people in the country, but the people in the cities that are starting to create this questioning of, after the pandemic started, I don't know if you felt it, but I think that the discussion has been leaded to what are we eating ourselves? What are we nourishing our bodies of? And I think it's a very, very important question that should be a center of debate, because it's very, very important considering the current situation we are living, whether we are in Mexico, in Georgia, or anywhere in the world, right? So every day at La Rifa, we make chocolate from the seed, right? Each of the cacaos that we work with has a story behind it, and it's a part of a very, very important cycle that begins in the fields and ends in a chocolate bar or a chocolate drink. So here I have for you guys a small piece of artwork that we made a couple of years ago with a graphic artist from the city. The idea was to put into images a lot of the work that happens in the country, right? A lot of the things that happen way before the cacao arrives to the shop, to La Rifa chocolate shop, and all of the important details that happen from the origin of our cacao, from the social roles that are being played in different cacao communities, and just to be able to put an eye on the importance of keeping the biodiversity, the flora, the fauna, into the mindset of new generations and just general people, right? So all of our chocolate, there's some images of the chocolate atelier and the staff members, the chocolate masters and the people that work here at La Rifa. And as you can see, we are doing some of the different transformation processes on our atelier, the selection, the grinding, the roasting of cacao, and of course, the tempering, right? A lot of the work that we make here at La Rifa, it's made by hand, but of course, we are trying to make the space or the atelier very, very comfortable for all the people working there. And of course, machines are a very, very big thing for us. Since we started working and since we started making our own chocolate and we started working with Cocoa Town, it has been a very, very important and significant change for our production. This means that even though we can make a lot of chocolate, we will be doing it in cost of somebody to just be there all day making chocolate bars and stuff. We are doing it easily with people that are able to use the machines and are familiarized with the machines. So this makes that all of our chocolates are unique and have their own identity because they come from agroforestry cacao plantations and are the result of harvest and post-harvest processes that also represent the dedication and the affection that peasant people and cacao farmers have to this crop, to this fruit, and to end with this chocolate. And some of the points that we value in a good chocolate, in a good chocolate piece, whether it is a chocolate bar or it's a chocolate drink, it's first of all, the origin. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the origin of our cacaos, the agroforestry systems. So to ensure the quality of the cacao bean, our traceability team accompanies the peasant families in the care of the cacao plantations, which establishes a dialogue seeking to build improvements and to be able to create this dialogue in order to become much easier for cacao farmers and for us to have these conversations where we understand their work and they understand our work, and we can come to this point of balance where we can work together without interrupting like natural cycles in the fields and in the cacao plantations, right? So the best fermentations and the best drying processes are being made with the infrastructure that each cacao farmer has. So we normally work with cacao farmers from the southeast in Mexico. We work with people in Chiapas and Tabasco, which are the main cacao producing states in Mexico. The states have the perfect weather for growing cacao, and not just growing cacao, but growing cacao inside of this agroforestry systems. And you might be asking, okay, Monica, but what is an agroforestry system? Well, the cacaos that we work with come from these systems that are basically polycultures, where we have small ecosystems managed by the peasants. In this cycle, the peasant work is going to be fundamental to be able to give continuity to this type of system, where we can find timber trees, wildflowers, endemic spices, fruits, different animals, different bugs, and everything in this ecosystem is going to coexist in harmony, right? So also a very, very important element inside of this agroforestry system is, of course, the farmer's work. Farmers need to understand this the system, the cycle, this agroforestry way of managing the land. And it's going to be very, very important for them, not just because it's going to have a direct impact on the flavor of their crops, but also a direct impact on the economy of each cacao farmer's family, right? So by having all of this timber trees and flowers and fruits and animals, we are also helping for the preservation of biodiversity, right? These tiny spaces are a way, not tiny at all, no, but these spaces are a very important way for cacao farmers to resist and keep the lifestyle that they are used to. It is very, very hard for cacao farmers right now to be able to keep their work in the field, because cacao farmers are reaching to an age that they are no longer able to work as hard as they used to, and the newer generations in cacao are just not interested in working with cacao, and not even mentioning the social and current situation that Mexico is living nowadays, right? So it's a very, very complex situation. It's a very, very complex way of dealing with a lot of elements and different things that can happen before even the cacao arrives to La Rifa. But we believe that each cacao has a very, very important story that needs to be told. So everything starts, of course, with this tiny, tiny flower, which I assume a lot of you already have seen. But this is the cacao flower. This flower is going to get pollinized by a small fly, like a tiny fruit fly or a mosquito, and it's going to become this tiny crop, right? So this crop, cacao farmers know it as a chilillo because it has the shape of a chile. So after a couple of months, maybe 4 or 6 months, we're going to have a fully grown cacao pod. This cacao pod can vary from any shape, any color, any size, depending on the cacao variety that we are talking about. But once that we already have our fully grown cacao, we're going to pass to the other element that we value, which is the post-harvest processes, right? So whenever we are talking about a very, very good cacao that comes from this agroforestry plantation, we need to know what happens after. So there you can see a picture of a cacao pod that it's open, that it's cut in half. And you can see all the beans stuck together by this. There's another picture that you can see better. There's all the cacao beans covered by this white pulp called mucilage. And this pulp is going to have a very important role during the fermentation. So what happens is that when the harvest is ready, cacao farmers are going to cut off the cacao pods straight from the trunk of the tree. So a ripe cacao pod, it's never falling off the tree. Cacao farmers need to, number one, understand their cacao plantation and be able to identify when these cacaos are ready to be cut. They use a machete for it, and they have to be like very, very specific, because sometimes if the machete is dirty or if the cacao tree is ill by, I don't know, any disease, this machete could be contaminated. So they have to be very, very strict in cleaning the machetes before they cut off the cacao pods, right? So fermentation and washing are post-harvest process, and cacao goes through in this journey, right? So on this side of my screen, you can see that there's the machete, but on the back are all the empty cacao pods. And interestingly enough, I'm trying to keep the idea of this cycle in the cacao plantations. Well, we can see that all the empty cacao pods are going to be separated in one special area called El Quebradero. So in this area, all the cacao pods are going to start to decompose, and they become compost or fertilizer to go to the cacao plantation, not just to go into the soil of the cacao tree, but into the whole cacao plantation, because this is a very, very hard shell that still has a lot of nutrients once after it's already, the beans are already taken out. But it's going to be very helpful for cacao farmers to add this compost or this fertilizer to their cacao plantations, and try to avoid adding any other chemicals, fertilizers, or any other additives that the government sends to the cacao farmers, right? So once we take out all of the cacao beans and all of the cacao with mucilage, we are going to add them, put them into these fermentation boxes, right? So I told you, remember, the fermentation is the mucilagos is very, very important for the fermentation. So you can see all these wooden boxes covered by banana leaves. And what is going to happen in fermentation, it's that the temperature of the entire batch is going to be elevated. The mucilagos is going to oxidate, and all the sugars in the pulp. I don't know if you ever had this kind of fruit, it's called soursop. But for you guys to have an idea, mucilagos, it's very, very acidic, but also very, very sweet. So all of these crazy flavors during the fermentation are going to go inside of the bean, right? Once they are inside of the bean, we're going to have this incredible flavor roller coaster where we are going to find, yes, acidity, but also a very bitter note, but also a very fruity note. So it creates this idea of many different flavors inside of one bean, thanks to this fermentation process. And what happens is that once they add all the batch to the wooden box, they are going to cover it with banana leaves and wait for a couple of days without touching it, without adding any air, just with the bacteria that the cacao has already, and the wooden box and the banana leaves, right? After a couple of days, say 4 days or something, they are going to take out a couple of cacao beans just for them to see how advanced is the fermentation. And then they're going to move the batch to a different wooden box, another fermentation box. So they add a lot of some air to the batch, becoming this the second phase of the fermentation, which is the aerobic fermentation. By changing the batch from one box to another, we are adding air, we are adding other bacteria, we're adding the bacteria that even are on our hands. And you can see here that the batch has already changed its color. It's no longer white and bright, and you can see more definition on the cacao beans. Now the mucilagos has already oxidated and it's inside of the bean, right? So after the fermentation is done, cacao farmers will eventually start sun drying their cacaos. By doing this, they stop the fermentation and kill some of the bacteria that help for this fermentation process. They are going to let it dry for a couple of days to the shadow and a couple of days to the sun. This is going to help us in La Rifa to preserve the cacao in better conditions and try to avoid as much humidity as we can. But before I continue with this explanation, I'm going to tell you about the other post-harvest process, which is not fermenting the cacao, meaning we are washing off the cacao pulp. And this is a post-harvest process that it's only made in Mexico, right? I will tell you all about the Mexican drinking chocolate in a minute. I just wanted you to understand the difference between the fermentation and the washing process. So washing the cacao is as simple as you hear it. We just wash off the pulp, the mucilagos, and just start to dry this cacao for the same amount of days, 4 or 5 days, depending on the weather conditions. But by not fermenting the cacao, we are not adding all the flavors that I mentioned of the mucilagos, right? We're just going to have a very, very plain-based flavor in washed cacao, a flavor that reminds us to smoky notes, to nutty flavors, to bitterness, right? And it's a very, very distilled flavor from the fermentation, from the fermented beans, because, well, the whole process that I already explained. And you may ask, okay, well, but if you can get all of these flavors out of fermentation, why wouldn't just ferment all of your cacao? Well, because in Mexico, we have another way of having cacao and chocolate, which is as a drink, right? So for us, it's going to be very, very important to have this flavor base that it's going to go well with any other corn or spices or fruits or chiles or any other condiment that we add to the beverage. So that's why we have washed cacao. Some people think that it's a second grade cacao, but for us, it's a very, very important part of our culture, not just for the cacao culture, but for the entire Mexican gastronomy. But well, once the cacao is dried, farmers, what they do is that they select, they take out any garbage or any, like, I don't know, leaf or anything that may end up in the batch. So they send it to La Rifa Chocolateria, right? We have our chocolate shop in La Juarez neighborhood in Mexico City, very, very close to downtown. And yes, we have a small chocolate factory where we make all of our chocolates on the back house. So it's very interesting, very, very aromatic. So our neighbors really like us because every morning they wake up and there's the aroma of fresh cacao being roasted on the ground floor. So this is a small piece of a sample that we took from the quality control that we take once the cacao arrives to La Rifa, which is another element that we value, the quality of the seeds. We have another team that is our quality control guys that are doing all this cutting samples and cutting tests. This test helps us to understand how well fermented the cacao batch is coming or how unfermented the cacao is coming. We don't believe that there is bad cacao. We understand that cacao farmers do their best work with whatever infrastructure they have. But our work as chocolate makers is to find the best expression for each cacao. Not all of the cacaos are going to go well in a chocolate bar, but we can definitely use every single cacao that we are working with as long as it's not damaged or it doesn't have like any mold or any worms or egg worms or anything, right? So I think that this part has a lot to do with the trust relationships that we have been developing, constantly developing with cacao farmers, with the families that we are working with. Trying to create this balance, trying to find this this communication where none of us feel uncomfortable because we are leaving our comfort zone. Us as chocolate makers in the city, we are going to the cacao plantations, which is not our area of expertise, but we try to share the knowledge that we have from our side with cacao farmers. In the most respectful way, we are trying to understand where they are coming from, what are the processes that they are working with, and trying to understand not just the processes, but the entire cycle, plantation, peasant work, the different cacao seeds that they are harvesting. And yes, we are currently using our cacaos for chocolate bars, chocolate drinks, pastries, and different like chocolate recipes, right? So trying to find the best expressions for each chocolate, each cacao, It's our constant day-on-day challenge. So the next element that we value in a good chocolate, it's going to be the whole transformation of cacao and chocolate. So I'm going to tell you about the primary transformation steps in the chocolate journey, right? So once we have the chocolates, the cacaos, once they already pass our quality control, we are going to roast them. So for this process, we use a convection oven. This oven is very helpful because it allows us to have the whole oven at the same temperature. It's going to help us because we can stash many different trays of cacaos and just roast them all at once. So we make 6 kilos per batch in terms of cacao and chocolate. So we can have a very detailed control of what chocolate we are using, what cacao variety, and just to keep a track on all the journey. Because when we are working with the same bean, but 6, 7 different varieties, it's very easy to get confused. So we have a tracking team that is going to have the registry of each cacao batch that we are working with. So everybody knows what they're doing. Once we roast our cacao, we have to let it sit for 24 hours, just for the cacao to be able to rest and just cool off, and we can get rid of all the bacteria that may still are on the shell, and just to be able to get rid of the humidity too. So after we roast our cacao and has already been out for 24 hours, we're going to crack it and then husk it. For this, at the beginning of this journey in La Rifa, we were cracking it and husking the cacao by hand. So yes, by hand. It was very cathartic, but very laborious. So at the beginning, we started to come up with different ideas of how we could make this process easier for the chocolate maker. So we were using a fan, we were using like moving the batch, and just with the fan, the husk was just flying away. A very rustic idea of how we could do this process easy. But after 2020, we decided that we were ready to give the next step in terms of the equipment that La Rifa was needing. So we used the Cocoa Town for the Cocoa Town winnower for husking the machines and the cracker. So it has been life-changing. It's not as messy as it used to be. So we are very happy with this particular piece of equipment, because this husking process was just the messiest. And the cacao husk has this very fine powder that goes inside your eyes, your ears, everything, your mouth, your nose. So you had to wear all this equipment. And we were husking cacao for hours and hours on our daily plan. So to be able to have this machinery, to have this equipment that was going to make it easier for all of us, was a big thank you. So thank you, Cocoa Town, once again. Bye. So once we have our cacao nibs ready, we are going to grind them. So we have a mill, a seeds mill, like where you can like grind corn and you can grind chile, but we use it to grind cacao. So all of our cacao, it's ground, washed and fermented. So we grind all the cacao in the mornings. We get all of this crazy, nice aromas coming from the mill. And then we are going to go to the next step. This is where the cacaos tend to differ. If we are going to make chocolate bars or if we are going to make chocolate drinks, okay? So I'm going to tell you about the chocolate drinks before, because I think a lot of you may already know about the refining, conching process, but let's take a moment to talk about the washed cacao and the Mexican drinking chocolate, right? So we were on the grinding process. After we grind our cacao, we get this very, very smooshy paste, very, very fresh, and it's not like powder at all, thanks to the cacao butter, right? So this cacao paste, it's mixed with piloncillo. I don't know if you ever heard about piloncillo, but piloncillo, it's an unrefined cane sugar. And in 2021, we decided that we were going to switch from regular bulk sugar to piloncillo because we were very, very interested in understanding the origin of each cacao variety that we work with, but we were still using bulk sugar from the store. So we wanted to go one step further into the traceability of our chocolates. So we decided to find a cooperative that was able to send us some piloncillo, grounded piloncillo, because you've probably seen this like shaped cones piloncillo if you ever visited Mexico City. They're also known as panela. And some of different communities in South America, they also have panela. But well, piloncillo is the extraction of the cane juice, and after a couple of processes, it becomes this like dark sugar, which has this amazing caramel note at the end that after a million of tests, we came with the perfect formulation for making a chocolate with piloncillo. And it helped us to lower the acidity on a lot of cacaos, but also to give this sense of creaminess to other varieties. So piloncillo was a very, very nice experiment that we did, because piloncillo also has a lot of humidity. And for those of you who are chocolate entrepreneurs or chocolate enthusiasts, you know that humidity is the worst enemy for a chocolate, right? So, well, we decided to use piloncillo. We sourced our piloncillo from La Huasteca Potosina, from the north side of Mexico. And we are very happy to be able to make that transition from sugar to piloncillo, because we also believe that cacao, it's not a candy, it's a superfood, and it's very, very important for people to start conceiving cacao as this superfood and not just as this candy that might give you the pimples or make you sick or something, no? So once the cacao and the piloncillo are ground together to create this homogeneous mix, we are going to hand mold it into tablets, hand mold it like the guy that it's doing it here. And in the end, the tablets look like this. So this is the traditional shape of Mexican drinking chocolate. These tablets that we are going to mix with boiling water. But let me tell you a little bit about the Mexican drinking chocolate, because I think this is the appropriate time to tell you about it. In Mexico was where the domestication of cacao began, right? So our ancestors understood that we could eat, or that the cacao seed was edible. So we started eating the cacao bean, not just sucking on the mucilagos as other communities in Mesoamerica did. We understood that eating the bean after sucking the mucilagos had a lot of good properties, because it gave you a lot of energy and it made you feel well. So after the domestication of cacao started, we started developing different cacao-based drinks. In the Southeast, mostly in Chiapas, Tabasco, Guerrero, which were the states that were producing cacao. They were harvesting cacao, they were making drinks with the washed cacao, corn, and maybe chile, or maybe any other like endemic spice, endemic flower growing in different communities. So nowadays we have more than 60 different cacao-based drinks that are still being reproduced and being shared by communities, thanks to weddings, parties, funerals, town parties, and all of this sense of community and sharing knowledge that it's created in this kind of spaces, right? So we are very, very interested in perceiving, no, not perceiving, in continuing the tradition of Mexican drinking chocolate. Here at La Rifa, we don't make this traditional drinks because we believe there is a line of respect, you know, respect of their traditions, respect on the culture that it's surrounding all of these beverages. So for example, when it's the National Corn Day, we are giving away some pozol, which is a very, very traditional cacao-based drink made with cacao, corn, and just water. So it's a very, very thick, it's kind of a cold atole. I don't know if you ever had atole, but a very, very thick drink that it's very, very popular, mostly in Tabasco, in Chiapas, and every community has its own particular way of making pozol, or pairing the pozol with a particular candy from a pumpkin that only grows in the Comalcalco town in Tabasco, sorry. But we believe that it's very, very interesting to see how the colonization of chocolate and cacao has completely erased this other side of the story, right? The first step of chocolate were the drinkings, the beverages, the cacao-based drinks, right? Because after the Spanish came, they came through Veracruz and they were in Teotihuacan. They were offered to get cacao drinks because remember this, they were traveling from Spain, they came to Veracruz and they were very, very sick, tired men that have been traveling for months now. So we've never seen before horses or the armories that they were using. So for the people, for the Aztecs and the Mexicas, they were just gods. And cacao drinks were meant to be drank just by gods and warriors and priests and the high ends of society, of pre-Hispanic society, right? Cacao was such an important tribute, such an important seed that was tributed from Tabasco, from Chiapas, all the way to Tenochtitlan, right? So the big city was getting all these tributes from this cacao towns, because it was a very, very important being for us, even so that it became a currency after some time. So you could trade cacao beans for rabbits, for clothing, for other crops and stuff like that. So cacao became a very, very big deal in Mexico, not just in the Saudis, but also in Tenochtitlan, which was the big city, which is nowadays Mexico City, right? So the Aztecs offered the Spaniards cacao drinks and they drank it and they felt amazing because it was a very, very nutritious food, and they were just surprised because they had not encountered any cacao in Spain or in Europe or anywhere. So for them, it was very, very crazy. And there are some texts that I don't remember which fraile made them, but he was super interested in seeing that in every market, people were not drinking wine, were not drinking water, but they were trading these cacao beans and they were drinking this very thick and very dark and very bitter drink that made them with a lot of energy and made them feel good. So it was very, very weird for them just to see how this was changing and how important this bean was. So that's where they decided to take it to Spain, and it was pretty much a commodity for the high ends of society in the old continent too. And that's when we started to see the Spanish chocolate with the mancerinas and the drinking chocolate of this very, very thick chocolate that almost looks like a sauce. So this is where it started, the journey to the old continent, we already knew the cacao drinks. They already understood that this cacao had a lot of properties, a lot of benefits, and they decided to take it back home, right? But it was super, super expensive to keep bringing back cacao to America, to bring it to Europe, to Spain and stuff like that. So they decided to start harvesting cacao closer to them, right, in Africa. We're not going into that path today because we have a lot to cover still, but just for you to have an idea, drinking chocolate was the first step for what we know today as chocolate. Once they discovered the powder milk, they were able to make chocolate bars, and they discovered that they were good for the soldiers in the World War I, and it was easier for them to just have packed a chocolate bar that was going to give a lot of energy to them. So that's what happened, and that's how the chocolate bars were actually discovered after the First World War I. Okay, but going back to the story behind the Mexican drinking chocolate, well, yeah, we are still drinking chocolate in Mexico. We are still making drinking chocolate at La Rifa. And another thing that is very, very important is that traditionally in Mexico, we drink our chocolate with water, not milk. And we normally have it cold because Mexico is a very, very chill country and we don't have a lot of cold. So to have a refreshing drink, it's always welcome. And if you go to Tabasco, if you go to Oaxaca, if you go to Chiapas, you will see that there's a wide variety of cacao drinks that are still being reproduced in a lot of markets, in a lot of communities. And I think it's a great way to preserve the culture, the bioculture surrounding the cacao, surrounding the cycle that starts from the tiny flower and ends up in a chocolate drink or a chocolate bar. And all of this work involves a lot of families, involves a lot of passions, and involves a lot of people, not just in the country, not just in the cities, but passionate people that are just doing what they can to make chocolate. Okay, so going back to the elements that we value in a good chocolate, it's of course the refining. After the chocolate has been grounded for a couple of times with piloncillo, we're going to use our melanger to start the refining process. By refining the process, we are going to make the particles super small, so you don't feel it whenever you are eating a chocolate, because we believe that a chocolate bar, it's a whole experience, right? Where all your senses have to be like very sharp. So it's very important for us to have a good refining and a good tempering. So we measure the particles with a micrometer, and whenever we know that the chocolate is silky, it's soft, and it's ready, we take it out of our melanger that also does the conching process, which is lowering the acidity by keeping the refining process. The acidity flies away or evaporates, if that makes some sense to you. So after we take out the melanger, we're going to go for the tempering process. So tempering is the last process of cacao transformation. So here we create a temperature curve to ensure that all of our chocolate is homogeneous and it's going to crystallize correctly. So that's how we get this shiny and very crunchy piece in the end. No? So once we are done with tempering and molding the chocolate, we have our different cacao varieties in the chocolate presentation. As you can see here in one of my last pictures, I placed all of the chocolates that we are making here in La Rifa Chocolateria, all the different cacao varieties that we are working with different families. And you can see that there's different like browns, different lighter brown. Some of them are very, very dark. And I think that's the beauty of working with cacao coming from agroforestry systems. Origins, different works, different organizations, and different, of course, different communities are very, very important for us to have this wide variety of cacaos, of flavors, of experiences, and just being able to share with different cacao farmers the work that we are doing, and share also the knowledge that we have gotten thanks to the other farmers. It creates this sort of network of sharing knowledge, creating trust relationships, and just finding people that are as passionate about chocolate and cacao as you are. I think that's one of the biggest rewards in the chocolate journey that La Rifa and I have been living, I guess, right? So, well, this is pretty much what I have for you guys. These are the elements that we value in a good chocolate: origin, peasant work, post-harvest processes, quality of the bean, transformation of chocolate, refining and tempering the chocolate. So all of this chocolates, cacao, and chocolate drinks represent for many communities one more way to resist and maintain the lifestyle that they are used to. And I encourage every one of you to look for your local chocolate projects and just to drink and eat chocolate, real chocolate, because yes, as Mrs. Balu was saying at the beginning of this webinar, cacao is a superfood, and high percent cacao chocolates are a superfood too. So I'm just going to close up by telling you guys that making chocolate involves hundreds of people, ecosystems, temporalities, and knowledge, and many other factors. And it's a transdisciplinary act that connects different generations, different races, and different cultures. I thank you so, so much, all of you, for your time and for your attention. And thank you so much once again, Teresa, Mrs. Balu, Cocoa Town team, for everything that you do and have done for us. We have been working with Cocoa Town for a couple of years now with our melangers, our winnower, our cracker, and they have been amazingly supportive towards us, and just wanted to highlight that. Thank you so much, guys. And well, if you ever go to Mexico City, or you just want to follow us on our social media, please make sure to find us on our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are La Rifa Chocolateria, and you can find us in Mexico City. We have a very, very nice square outside La Rifas where you can take your drinking chocolate and just chill or whatever. Thank you so much, guys.